It's Friday, April 20th, 2012. My name is Jordan, and you're watching XDA TV. There were quite a few big stories this week, so let's go ahead and get started. If you are a Windows Phone 7 user and you enjoy hacking around on your device, and let's face it, if you're here on XDA TV or on the XDA-Developers site, you are probably a device hacker of sorts. Don't know if you'd be a Windows Phone 7 user, but anyway, we'll move on. If you are one of those people, then you might have heard of Chevron WP7. If you're not familiar with it, it is basically a way for Windows Phone 7 users to unlock their devices and sideload applications. This used to be baked into the OS, and then Microsoft in their infinite wisdom decided to close up all of those available holes, change the way that packages are done and everything, and just make it all around more difficult to customize your own device. Well, like I said before, the guys over at Chevron made a way for that to happen, made a way to unlock the devices and sideload things to it. Microsoft came knocking on their door and said, quit it. They did for a little while, and then they talked to Microsoft and managed to work it out. That, in my opinion, sounds a little bit suspicious, and as it turns out, my suspicions would be correct. Because, as of the other day, they've released a statement on their blog saying that all of their unlocked devices will become locked again after 120 days. Microsoft is moving everything to an app hub so that if you want to do development type stuff, which is what they consider this, then you have to sign up for their service. If you were a paid customer of the Chevron product, then you will have a free year of service to it, but then you'll have to start paying $99 a year after that. So, in all honesty, this could be a nail in the coffin for Windows Phone 7, at least in the hacking developing type communities. If you are a Windows Phone 7 user and you were a user of this, let us know what you think of it in the comment section down below. From what I understand, Rafael Rivera, one of the developers of Chevron, came to the XDA site and made a comment sort of asking what all the hate was about. I think, just to sort of summarize what I've seen, what I've read, what I understand, since I'm not a Windows Phone 7 user, the hate is that they created a product. The product itself is expiring, even though the terms of service didn't really say, hey, by the way, this is a time-sensitive thing. And people are just very displeased with it, to put it nicely, that it would be pulled away and essentially be told, if you want to do anything like this to your device, you got to pay for it. One way or another, though, if you were a user of Chevron, definitely head over to their site and take a look at it, see if it's something you're interested in, going ahead and signing up for the App Hub to get your free year of service, and let us know again what you think of all this in the comment section down below. In other not-so-good news, a major SDK vulnerability was found in the Facebook SDK for Android. And wouldn't you know it, an XDA forum member by the name of Vivu, I'm very, very sorry, I'm going to mispronounce that one badly, but it was an XDA forum member that did discover it and reported it to Facebook rather than leaking it out and allowing other people to exploit it. Like I said, Facebook went ahead and fixed the vulnerability in the SDK. The problem with that, though, is the SDK does not automatically update in applications that are out there in the world, so the developers that are using these older versions of the SDK are going to have to manually update it to get rid of that vulnerability. However, that same XDA forum member, Vivu, and I'm hoping that's the correct pronunciation, has released an app to the Play Store called Facebook SDK Checker. You can find a link to it on the XDA-Developers site. I'll have a link to that, of course, down in the video description so you can take a look at it. Make sure that all of your apps that use Facebook authentication are up to date. If they're not, I would suggest being very careful with your device, or at the very best case, uninstalling it until they get it up to date. And speaking of members of the XDA community thoroughly giving back to the community and doing some great work, this week 2 XDA senior members, XInfinity00 and Deco7, have released APKs for the Google Play Store that are unlocked for other countries. This would allow anyone, anywhere in the world, any country that you happen to be in, to download whatever you want from the store, as long as your device is compatible with the download. Like I said, there are 2 XDA senior members working on it, but they're working on 2 separate APKs that are supposed to work on separate devices or have separate bugs. I don't know, I would kind of assume that it would be nice to work together on the project, but take a look in the forums and see if the APK works on your device or not. If you're in a country that has those restrictions, this may be a good chance for you to lift them on yourself. But let's go ahead and move on to a little bit of update news. Earlier this week, Samsung UK announced that they're working on getting Ice Cream Sandwich out to all of their Samsung Galaxy S2 customers. Currently, they have it working on all unlocked devices, and they're working to get it on all major networks like Orange and T-Mobile and whoever else has the Galaxy S2. That said, from my understanding, there are quite a few Ice Cream Sandwich Galaxy S2 ROMs out there, so if you haven't already taken a look at one, it may be a good time. But if you do want the official one from Samsung, it is on the way. And speaking of rolling out Ice Cream Sandwich, this week Sony started rolling it out to several of their devices, including the Xperia Arc S, the Xperia Neo V, the Xperia Ray in Sweden, Denmark, Iceland, Finland, and Norway. It's going to be happening over the next 4 to 6 weeks, so if you do have one of these devices, definitely let us know if you've gotten the update or not. Of course, the rest of the Xperia line will be getting Ice Cream Sandwich in May or June, so if you have one of the other devices that I didn't name earlier, keep an eye out for that. You may just keep checking back the XDA site or on the Sony site and just see if your device is getting it anytime soon. And speaking of Sony and Ice Cream Sandwich and all of those devices that are going to be getting it, Sony announced earlier this week they're starting a new program to get devices into the hands of developers that want to make sure their apps work on the Sony devices. They're calling it the Device Loaner Program. It's essentially a 30-day loan where you can get the device, you can put your app on it, make sure everything works smoothly, and then of course send it back to them at the end. That said, if you are an app developer, go ahead and check out this program so you can make sure to get your hands on an Xperia device just to make sure your apps work right. Keep in mind, however, if you're outside of the US or Canada, you will have to pay shipping and customs and duties and fees and all sorts of fun stuff like that, so it's not an entirely free product for a month. But if you are in the US or Canada and you are an app developer and you do want to, just go ahead and take a look at the site and see if it works for you. And speaking of Sony again, and the Xperia Arc S in particular, XDA senior member Cohen has been working on a port of the Ice Cream Sandwich build for the Xperia Arc S to the Galaxy Nexus. So if you like the interface that comes along with the Xperia devices, you may want to give this a try on your Nexus if you do own one. That said, near-field communication and video recording do not work on this new ROM yet, so if that's one of those things you depend upon, you may not be in a huge hurry to go jumping on this ROM yet. But if you're not into using those two things, you may want to give it a shot. This next story was a bit of a happy accident, and I'm sure a lot of Samsung owners are going to be very happy to hear it. XDA forum member Stoneboy Tony was working on a rooting method for the Samsung Galaxy Mini and just happened to stumble onto a method to root a bunch of Samsung Gingerbread devices. So if you do own a Samsung device that still has Gingerbread on it, if you have one of the older devices and you haven't come up with a way to root it yet, it's supposed to work on versions 2.3.3 to 2.3.7. So if you're somewhere in there and you are wanting to root it, go check out the thread over on XDA. It may just work out for you. And actually, speaking of rooting your device, one of the scariest things about rooting your device, flashing new ROMs on it, whatever, is what happens if something goes wrong? What if you break your device? In some cases, they have ways to come back from it, but certain devices just can't. That said, one more device can be added to that unbreakable list. XDA senior member Mock Zealot has posted a long forum post detailing how you can bring the LG Nitro HD back from the brink of being a brick. So if you do have that LG Nitro HD and you have managed to brick it in some way, don't throw it away yet. Don't send it back. Don't sell it. Go ahead and check out this forum post and see if you can get your device back in working order. And since we're on the topic of bricking and unbricking devices, the Transformer Prime I don't believe had a way to undo a soft brick before. Now, thanks to XDA senior member Master Zen88, there is a tool that's called WSG Unbricker that will help unsoft brick your Transformer Prime. It is a Windows-only batch file though, so if you're a Mac or Linux user, you might have to find somebody else's machine. That said, it would only be for a short amount of time, so I'm sure you could probably work it out. And one of the last stories I'd like to talk about is one that's a bit near and dear to me. If you know anything about me, you know that I use Linux in my day-to-day life. I like to talk about open source software. I like to talk about free and open source software specifically. Well, this week saw another little milestone in the vein of open source software from XDA forum member Hunter G. Davis, who checked through his site and his app traffic and everything and decided to just go ahead and open source 70 Android apps that he had created. And not only did he open the source for those 70 apps and post it all online, he actually created a script to do it for him so that his machine could just post it all to the web for him when he's ready, and then release the source for that as well. And then 11 more apps that he'd created. So in total, I think he's done 82 apps or so. I definitely have to applaud Mr. Davis for his work. I don't believe I've actually used any of his apps before, but I will definitely be taking a look at them now. And since we're talking about open sourcing Android apps, make sure you check out Adam Outler's video from earlier this week on how to set up an Android app development environment. He's going to be going through the steps of creating an Android app over the next few weeks, so this may actually be a good opportunity to study the source code that Hunter Davis provided and see if you can maybe adapt some of his code to make some new apps, or make some just brand new apps of your own. Also, if you haven't seen it yet, make sure to check out Shin's post from yesterday where he unboxed and rooted and flashed the recovery on an HTC One X. That is a device I would love to get my hands on, especially the global version with the quad-core processor, but I'm not going to keep my hopes up. I am a Verizon person, and it's not available on Verizon yet. Anyway, I think that's all I've got for you today. There are, of course, a ton more stories over on xda-developers.com that I didn't have time to mention. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them in the comment section below or over on the forum, forums.xda-developers.com. As always, though, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.